All right, the NFC South. 8 wins over or 8 wins under? Number one team in the division, I think, will be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, followed by the Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers, and then last place, New Orleans Saints. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they still got Baker Mayfield, and they still have Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, those huge targets. As long as they stay healthy, he's got some numbers. Baker Mayfield had 41 passing touchdowns. That's phenomenal. 4,500 passing yards total. 16 interceptions. This guy was a first-round pick in 2018 for the Cleveland Brownies. Who knew that his numbers would be the way they are? But looking at his history, the guy this was his best season this past season. Did they make it to the playoffs? Not sure. But they didn't make it through the playoffs, if that makes sense. But offensively, yes, they got those targets. They got Sterling Shepard on their team. Defensively, they have Hassan Reddick, who cares a lot about money. He's 30 years young. He didn't really put up numbers against the Jets, but had solid numbers the 3 seasons before that with 10 sacks or more. So the big question is how well this defense will do, not just within the division, but against other teams across the league. So Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think they will get the division, and they will get at least 10 wins this season.
Yeah. So they did revamp their defense. Definitely defensive line with the huge addition from Hassan Reddick. They did let go of Cohen to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So they're letting go of a guy that has been in that system for a good bit of time. And then the positive was that they just elevated one of their coordinators underneath them to offensive coordinator. So hopefully that doesn't really affect the transition. I think it's going to be a tough schedule for them. Their lowest is 8-9. The highest will be 10-7. So right around 9 wins is a safe bet if you were going to Vegas, only because it's getting tougher. The division it's taking small baby steps forward. They're going to still have moments where they don't look too good, because last season they had that issue where the Falcons were the division leader and they were looking up at the Falcons. So It's a new world for the Bucs. So I would say 9 wins for them is a safe bet.
And then the Atlanta Falcons, okay? Atlanta Falcons last season go out and they spend all kinds of money on their guy Kirk Cousins, but then they go out and they draft Michael Penix. And then they decide at some point of the season that they wanted to go with Michael Penix, and he does decently. So he becomes the starter for the Atlanta Falcons. But statistically, he threw 3 touchdowns and he threw 3 interceptions. So we'll see what he can do starting the very start of the season for the Atlanta Falcons. They have a phenomenal running game with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. I remember these guys used to run over the Packers, as Bijan Robinson had 1,456 rushing yards and 14 touchdowns. So just looking at that, if the passing game's not working, at least they got a running game that's working. Drake London is one of their top receivers. Darnell Mooney. These guys are good. Kyle Pitts is kind of okay. I've had him on fantasy, and he didn't really put up a whole lot of numbers, but it's okay-ish numbers. 602 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns.
He's heading into a contract year.
We'll see what will happen. I mean, offensively, yes, they can put up some numbers. Defensively, not too sure. They have Benny Sapp the third on their team. Wow, okay. But I think that they're going to get at least eight wins this season.
Yeah. So the Jerry Springer show made it to Atlanta because the Falcons are definitely having buyer's remorse with Kirk O'Chain and what they have with Michael Penix. And they pretty much put themselves in a bad situation where they have the most expensive backup quarterback in the league. And they're going to play their rookie quarterback and hope that he wins now that everybody's going to have tape on him. That's going to be the big key. Is Michael Penix going to be ready for when everybody knows what they're going to get from him? That's going to be the big question, because if they don't, then what are they going to do? They're going to revert back to Kirk Cousins to be like, hell, we need you to win the division for us. And he's going to try, and I feel a lot of the nagging injury from what made him leave Minnesota is going to continue to be a problem, and they're going to struggle. Their defense is going to try to keep them in games, but it's going to be a struggle because of all the stuff that is not being handled off the field. I see Vegas put 9.5 wins, but I just don't see it. I see 7 wins with this team. I see Michael Penix having a sophomore slump, even though he only played a handful of games. It's still not going to be like they were projecting, because at the end of the season, ESPN put up a model that said Michael Penix, if he started all 17 games, would have had like 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns and like 6 interceptions. And it was just, okay, he did really great, but how much of those teams that he faced had tape on him? Now they do. Now they know his tendencies. Now they know how to prepare for him. So now, what is he going to bring to the table that they don't already know?
That's true, yeah. All right, next up, the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers. They go all out and they get Bryce Young one season. Last season, he struggled from the start a little bit. They put Andy Dalton in there. He wins one game, and then they keep Andy Dalton in there, and then they switch back to Bryce Young. And Bryce Young, out of nowhere, starts building confidence for the Carolina Panthers. You have Chuba Hubbard, who is putting up solid numbers on the running game. Miles Sanders was kind of not really a part of the game, but they get rid of Miles Sanders, and they go out and get Rico Dowdy. Dowdy or Dowdle? Dowdle. From the Cowgirls. He was doing decent. And then they get Jonathan Brooks, who got injured but tried to come back. So the running game, Dowdle had 1,079 rushing yards. We don't know.
Yards.
Yeah, so out of these 2 rushers, you got 2 guys that can rush that football. So Bryce Young doesn't really need to put his body on the line rushing that football when you have 2 guys that can run the football. You don't know what you can get out of Jonathan Brooks, so they're going to probably test out and see what Jonathan Brooks can do, and maybe they keep all 3 in their starting lineup. Adam Thielen comes back for another season. He's kind of on the older side, but he's still reliable in catching that football. Xavier Legette, he loves his raccoons, but the guy is a kind-hearted soul and catches that football where he needs to be. And he's kind of developing. He's continuing to develop. Very good receiver, honestly. Coker, you said that Coker was a great receiver. He had 478 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. We'll see what he can do in his next season here. He's only 23. You got a lot of young players on this team.
Right.
Young players are good because if they get injured, they can always bounce back. They signed Tommy Tremble, but Jatavian Sanders might be the future at tight end. They drafted him the previous season. Decent numbers there. What will they need to do in the draft? I think they're going to go out and get themselves another receiver somehow. Try to boost up that offense, but also try to enhance their defense. Defense is the biggest question mark for the Panthers. They keep their defensive coordinator, which was surprising. Like you said in a previous video, the reason was because they had all kinds of injuries defensively. We'll see if that's the case in the second season here. But honestly, I think they should go out and they should draft some big-time defensive players to enhance this team further. Probably should prioritize defense first and then maybe go get a receiver in the second round and then continuing to build your defense. But they are going to make a huge step from the previous season. I think that they will get about 7 wins this season.
All right. So the Carolina Kittens, as they're going to be called because they're super young. Bryce Young, the biggest thing is how does he improve from the end of last year? Or is he going to continue to be one of those people that need a kick in the butt to get things going? Because I feel like with Dalton coming in and him being benched, even though he was healthy, I think that was an eye-opening thing that he realized, oh man, I need to get better as a quarterback, and he really did. The back half of the year, all the people on sports talks were talking about how he was the best quarterback going into the back half of the year. I think if he comes in hungry off of being in this off season and he really puts in the effort, we might be talking about something. But just like the Bengals, that's why I think it's funny that they're two cat teams. The Bengals had a very terrible defense, and this team had the historically bad defense. They were the worst in points allowed. They were the worst in allowing passes and rushing. They were the worst. There is no other way to say it. They were so bad, I think I saw garbage cans on the field when they were playing. The biggest thing is that defensive coordinator. He wants to play the 3-high safety, and that system does not work in the NFL. And I was surprised that they allowed him back in the building. They should have, as he walked out the final game, locked the doors and told him we're changing the locks, because he was awful. The defense needs to rebound. I don't know, even if we draft guys that fit his system, if it's going to help, because you're talking about going against very heavy running backs. You're talking about 230 to 250 pound running back running full speed against a defense, the average weight being about 200 pounds. I'm sorry to say it, but every once in a while, you can get knocked down by a 50-pound bag of gold. So it's going to be a huge problem on defense. They cannot stop the run. They cannot stop the pass, because just looking at the schedule, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
They face a lot of teams with good offenses, and that defense is the biggest hole. If there was a way to make a black hole in Charlotte, it would be around that defense. So I hate saying it because it pains me when I'm saying this because it's my team, but Vegas says 5.5 wins. I'm saying if Bryce Young doesn't come in and does what we saw at the end of the year, it's going to be 5-12. If he comes in and he improves from last year, it's going to be 8-9. But realistically, it's going to be 6.5 wins.
Yeah. The biggest weakness is probably the defense at this point. This is going to be a test. Did they really make a good decision in bringing back this defensive coordinator? We're going to find out this upcoming season. I think that defensive coordinator, he's on the hot seat. It wouldn't be smart to bring him back if the defense it just gets destroyed,
That seat's in embers. That's how bad it is.
Yeah. Kind of like the Packers with Joe Barry. Like, the guy was just not good at defensive coordinator. They kept Joe Barry for like 4 years.
And now we're going to talk about the Aints.
Okay. The New Orleans Aints. Or Saints. Saints or Aints?
The Aints.
So New Orleans Saints, or the Aints. Derek Carr is their starting quarterback with Spencer Rattler. Kind of looks like Patrick Mahomes. Alvin Kamara. Aren't these guys getting up there in age? Chris Olave is pretty decent. Rashid Shaheed is okay. No, I don't know. Derek Carr is very injury prone. It seems like every season he gets injured. Juwan Johnson, former Penn State wide receiver, is a tight end for the Saints. He catches all kinds of footballs there. They have Taysom Hill, who could play quarterback and tight end. They have some versatility there. Defensively, they go out and they re-sign Chase Young. He was a good linebacker. They have Kool-Aid McKinstry. But ultimately, it's the quarterback that really affects this team. And the Packers just straight up destroyed them last season. Like, this was like a minor league football team or something. So I don't see this team getting over 8 wins. I think that they will get like 5 wins.
Yeah, so the Saints, they also got a new head coach in Kellen Moore, who's coming from Philadelphia. I don't even think he even left the New Orleans area, because they literally hired him the day after the Super Bowl. They have Derek Carr, who's injury prone. A lot of their team is injury prone. That's why it was really shocking to see how they were high scoring the first 4 weeks of the season, and then it dropped. Like, they found the trap door and fell right through, and it was bad. So
yeah. I'm looking at their depth chart. They have 10 Qs on their offensive side. The Qs meaning questionable.
Yeah, and then the biggest thing for this season that's coming up is, can the old Aints be able to last this season? Because they started off hot and fizzled out all the way at the end. I mean, it was right after the Panthers beat them in Charlotte that they started seeing a huge decline, and it kept on going and spiraling out of control to the point they were the bottom team in the division. I don't see them. It says 9.5 wins, but Vegas is trying to make it out that on paper, yes, if they stay consistently healthy all 17 games, yeah, I can see them winning 9 games. But to be honest with you, they're old, and the average injuries for them is really high compared to the rest of the league. A lot of players are hurt every single week for this team. So to me, 6.5 wins is probably going to be the best bet, unless somehow they found the fountain of youth and that team just starts scoring, trying to see how high they can score. But I think with a new head coach, injuries happening, transitioning is going to be taking place, it's going to end up being a 6-win season. And I think it's interesting to note, Kellen Moore also faced his quarterback when they were both in college. So that's going to be an interesting perspective with this team.
All right, so we have the NFC South.
Listen up. Subscribe to Go Pack Go all day. And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.